and it's not going to be uh, archived. So it's just so if people happen upon it, then they can chime in. I don't, it's not a performance. As you know, I like to remind people so that they don't feel self-conscious. Maybe I shouldn't even say that we're doing it. Ah, my left controller is strange. Here we go. Let's Jack the Ripper. Let's run a 2-minute music cue while we are loading and streaming. I'm going to play a song. I'm going to sing along with this song, but you can't hear the music because it's from the YouTubes. Let's see if I remember the lyrics. Here we go. I ate the chocolate, I admit. I stretched your shirts so they would fit. I used the stuffs that stuffs your bath. I drank the wine and had a laugh. I did it deliberately. I acted consciously, and I saw it coming almost every day. Dee da da dee da, dee da 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 dum. I've been smoking in the car. Yes, I took things way too far. I asked myself, what did I do? I thought I was king for me and you. So I felt deliberately. I lost so joyfully, and I saw it coming almost every day. I always hoped you never see me cry. But the tables on my face. Mm. Hello there, and welcome to the Drax Files Book Club, presented to you by the Drax Files Empire with the help of Daisy Gator, Kung Fury, and many others. And I'm gonna just cut the music here. Nice, right? And the poetry, it's just it's pretty lovely poetry. We got Mad Eye here, and we got who is there behind you, Daisy? That is Ari Lynn. Ah, you have no names either. Ah, you have all social services disconnected. And here's Jack the Ripper. Jack the Ripper, who I admire highly. I said it earlier, your experiences. We went there early on. We can't hear you, but that's fine. Okay, are you fine with that? You're not using voice. That's cool, Jack. Uh, we're having the book club today, so I would like to go downstairs and let's go downstairs. And Ori, if you hear us, follow us later when you're low. What? And my left controller is a little bit wonky. Folks on YouTube, folks on Twitch, let me know if you can hear me. Yeah, my left controller is giving up its ghost or the battery. Today the topic is highbrow versus lowbrow, and that is a little bit related to maybe, I guess. It's a little bit related to, and I cannot walk forward because of the controller. It's a little bit related to what we talked about last time, which was guilty pleasures. So welcome to the basement, and maybe I should change batteries at some point. But yeah, highbrow versus lowbrow. I mean, Daisy, what is highbrow? What do we mean by highbrow? Is that literary fiction, and is lowbrow genre fiction? Mm-hmm. Oh, I see. Wait. Oh, you said, I see. So you mean like where it's set in the kind of social setting. Mm-hmm. 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 I see. See, I never looked at it that way. This is really interesting. I really thought about this being sort of more an issue of uh, sort of subject matter, but you're making a lot of sense. I mean, I don't even know how this is being defined. So we're actually talking about the definition, which is awesome. That gets us right in. Hi, Shyla, the super gecko. How are you? We're and here's Mad Eye. Um, okay. Well, then they need to open their eyes. Harsh. They, what do you mean they can't see me on where? On Twitch or something? I have my monitor right here. I see everything is perfect.
The denizens have lost their minds.
They meant they can't hear me.
Right. They
Oh,
can't hear you.
Yeah. Well, that they were true. I didn't plug in the mic. That's a
I heard
mistake.
only hear you, or I saw only hear you in my message.
If we could only hear you.
If okay, so let me briefly set up this.
Oh, oh, no, you're right. They can't hear you.
Oh, it's all good. I apologize. Can you hear me now? This is a Verizon commercial. Okay, so let me set this up. We're talking about highbrow versus lowbrow, and Daisy was just, and let's just repeat this. Why not? Because this is a really interesting take. When I set up this theme, I thought highbrow is sort of literary fiction, which I want to define, and lowbrow is kind of genre or pulp fiction. But Daisy, you were talking about sort of the setting and in which the narrative takes place, right?
Yeah, well, for me, that's an important factor.
Yeah.
Yeah, personally, I mean, I think of literary as a, well, I suppose literary is, it does include that to some degree.
But
Yeah,
but you're
that's the way I
basically
see it anyway.
saying you were saying that Charles Dickens, because he's set in a working class environment, mainly he is not highbrow. Mm, hmm
I would suggest, I would probably argue that, yeah.
That's really a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's literary, but not highbrow, personally.
Where does that leave a lot of sci-fi?
Right, exactly. So I want to make the bend, and everybody can sort of use their own definition because I don't even know if there is a official one. Shiloh, when you hear lowbrow and highbrow, what are you thinking? What is your association with these words?
Well, you know me as an activist, I just see that as a divider,
Yes,
like
as an
people
artificial class
qualifying.
division.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. I'm going to
that's
go
right.
protest right now, and but I think yeah, I think there are people who have qualified literary works and said these are great works, and the result is these other classes that have not been recognized, and maybe not yet, because we know a lot of things get recognized after the author is
That's right.
gone.
That is right too, yeah.
People miss out on those because we read and I consider highbrow to be kind of the classics
Hmm. Hmm.
that we're told to read, and then you know, I
But
don't
then see,
know.
but then you're there like, if somebody dies, then they can become an instant classic, and during their lifetime, they're being, chastised as sort of trashy pulp fiction that you can wipe the cat litter with, I guess.
Well, I think Yeah, I mean, I think of cult followings too. The cult followings of like a Rocky Horror Picture Show is probably
Mm-hmm.
lowbrow,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a lot of it's an awesome, and it's got a huge following
Mm-hmm.
of people. But I don't know even after death that is ever going to pop into the literary classics because of its context
Right, right, right.
where it's set, which kind of goes a little bit to what Gator is saying, except that she's looking at the context as qualifying as the lowbrow or the highbrow.
Mm-hmm.
So,
The context, the
Rocky
setting, the
Horror.
worlds. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But then when
Yeah.
you start talking about like Star Trek, in that
Yep.
definition, Star Trek becomes highbrow, right?
Yeah.
Because they have all their needs fulfilled in Star Trek, whereas Dunes maybe is sci-fi on the lowbrow. But to me,
Wow, yeah, that's a good point. But
Yeah,
then for a
that's true.
literary snob, like my mom used to be, she would throw this all into the same category as we discussed last week, because for her, Star Trek would certainly not be highbrow. I mean, okay, we're talking because she would probably define it along the lines of yeah, just
well,
basically
it's
so
a cult
literary fiction.
following,
Yeah, yeah.
right? I mean, there's still a huge following of Star Trek. It follows the proper form for
Yeah.
a story, conflict, climax, resolution, with a little romance somewhere along the lines.
Well, a lot
Yeah.
of the
Do you have a crush on Beverly
initial,
Crusher? Cheap shot.
a lot of the
Daisy?
original series Star Trek were actually based on the classics. Shakespeare. There's quite
Yes.
a
Oh,
number
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah, yeah.
episodes. So yeah, in that sense, it maybe is highbrow. Yeah.
No, and also exactly. And
But
so we have these two definitions. I'm looking for another book here. Where
But I'm
is it?
thinking too, Drax,
Keep
of like
talking, yeah.
zines. Zines to me are lowbrow, but they have a huge message, and I love to read, the one-off zines. I can't see many of them, but there's a lot of them on the internet. But there's a lot of them that still come out in print that I miss.
Oh, you mean like fanzines, like sci-fi related or genre related stuff?
Yeah, and it
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
even
yeah.
have to be. Some of it is just underground political, right? And
Yep.
and it's people making a statement in their zine. Some of them are comic, and I think, and then you think about all of this, the different forms of communication and reading we have today, like blogs are nothing, and yet they can have millions of followers, but
There,
they don't qualify as literary. Like no one's ever going to get a literary award for writing a blog.
we don't know that yet, and I think
Yeah.
some
Not
have,
yet. I would agree with you. Not yet. It hasn't happened yet.
It'll probably happen.
but
But
I
I think,
think
but I
so.
think right now the snobs are saying no. That's not going to qualify, and it's going to take this change.
We're having two distinct, super interesting. And by the way, Calvin, I'm so sorry I didn't even see you. Calvin is sneaking up on my back here. So we have two distinct, and Mika is sitting right behind me. That's really creepy.
You put her there.
All right, that's my alt. I forget. That's my testing alt from my laptop. No, I was testing how fast she could get in. So we have. I'm summarizing real quick. We have two different definitions that they kind of overlap. So highbrow, lowbrow could be like content-wise or sort of an artificial distinction made by the ruling elite that tells us one thing is crap and the other thing is good for you. And then Daisy says this has to do, or in her definition, has to do with the setting and the subject matter. And I think in your definition, Virginia Woolf would be super highbrow because the
Yeah.
way she sets the scene and in the worlds in which the narrative takes place, right?
Yeah.
Kelvin, do you want to
I-
chime in? Are you happy smoking your pipe?
Can I say just one more thing, Drax?
Yeah, then throw it to
I-
Meta. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think this highbrow, lowbrow, and because I'm coming from this activist viewpoint, what I envision is what would we burn? And
Good
I
point.
think we would burn highbrow and lowbrow. There's certain highbrow that have been accepted as literary classics, but they still, like in the United States, some of them still get banned in our school systems because They're considered.
Oh my God. You are opening a wonderful can of worms. My son went to school with, I gotta tell this quick anecdote. My son went to school with a boy whose parents were Christian. We knew that. They were very, very strong believers. They had four boys, and they were very nice actually. And my son played with them, went over to their house, and then I befriended them on Facebook, which sometimes can be a mistake. Now I'm off Facebook, deleted my account, and I realized the mother was head of a national organization. Name escapes me. This is an activist organization that tries to remove books from school libraries that were written by authors who were either gay or lesbian. Unbelievable.
Yeah,
Yeah, dreadful.
yeah. We gotta.
Ah,
Weird.
Kang,
I
who
think.
doesn't read, who likes to look at pictures, as he stated earlier, is throwing all these books out. That's awesome.
Yeah, Kung's done with the books.
Does that mean he thinks all books are too lowbrow or too highbrow?
I don't know. He's saying these books don't have enough pictures in them. This is a book called Transactive, a biography of Gwendolyn Ann Smith, who is also known in Second Life by her other name, which I'm not going to reveal. Uh, uh-oh, my controller's battery is low. Here I get the message. Sorry, Shyla, take over, and then I'll throw it. I'll throw it to Mad Eye. You were saying while I'm changing my batteries here quickly.
Well, I was just making a joke about him throwing books at you, but
Oh, that was a good one. Mad Eye, do you read?
yes.
Good, you can stay. I was gonna just throw you out. This is an inclusive community, unless you're, unless.
The highbrow are those who read, and the lowbrow.
No, we're super inclusive.
Oh, no.
Oh my
That's what
God,
the book subreddit feels like sometimes.
that's where the Mad Eye hangs out in the book subreddit. Oh my God, I gotta go there.
The-
I'm gonna announce the book file, Drax Files Club. Okay, go ahead, Mad Eye. Take it where you will.
like all these definitions seem like things that I've heard. It would be nice if we could get it to a, like you were talking about, lowbrow things with like things that are considered lowbrow but have awesome messages. It would be nice if somewhere the definition rested around things that actually have something to say, and
Yes.
like maybe to a degree, but a lesser degree, the level of writing involved. For example, like what Shiloh was saying about science fiction, some of it is really well thought out, gives you something to think about, becomes a classic for that reason. Episodes of classic Star Trek are a good example, and some of it is like the novels that L. Ron Hubbard wrote that are just meant to be fun, and he wrote them really fast because he was getting paid a penny per word or something, right?
Yeah.
Instead, they
is-
become a
Those
huge cult following.
Yeah. They
Yeah.
rejected him. I mean, Meta is making a wonderful point that I could not agree with more. I'm going to quickly summarize this, and then please continue, because you're saying that we should distinguish that upon the content and the merit and the thought that is put in there, and maybe even the radical nature of the thought, or the original nature of the thought, and not so much about the how it's being expressed. And I think this goes to the core of where this is such an artificial distinction, where it's dominated by snobs who just can't get, like, I mean, I revealed myself as a little bit of a snob last week, where I just can't get. Some stories are really awesome, but then the prose is so bad that now I can't do it anymore. But
Yeah.
but I totally agree with Mad Eye, and so because of this snobbery, a lot of stuff that is super important is getting just dismissed and thrown in the trash.
Yeah.
And like everyone has said, using genre fiction as an example, people who have been educated almost exclusively in classic literary fiction, they just might not have the context for things like Star Trek to make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like you're babbling about spaceships and laser guns and things like that and then the message is lost, or the depth of the debates the characters have is lost because they can't work out what's happening. And then people
Well,
who
and it
don't
can
like
go to-
Shakespeare have the same problem there. They don't understand the multiple layers of
Exactly.
Elizabethan English crossed with the fact that he was writing poetically and
no pictures.
no pictures. And I think to get Shakespeare, you really have to see it performed well, because it doesn't.
Yes.
It just doesn't resonate with anybody until they've seen it performed, because actors can make it more clear, even if the language and jokes and things like that would seem obscure.
Okay, I changed the
You get
batteries
reverse
of my
snobbery.
controller.
But
Mad-Eye,
I
this is
think
wonderful. Yeah, Shyla, go
to
ahead.
your definition, though, then Drax, who makes those decisions? And so, those who have money to create awards
Yes,
and give
there
them
you go.
out
There you go.
seem to get to make that decision.
And that's the story of the world. That's the story of the modern world. I have prepared 2 books, and I'm not going to read them now, but I just want to say that the cover, as Mad-Eye was talking, I realized also, this is a novelization of David Cronenberg's The Brood, which I bought when I was 12 years old. My mom was horrified. Look at this wonderful cover. The Brood, a unique experience in inner terror. There's like a red bag with a baby in it. The baby's trying to get out of the bag. I mean, right? This appeals to.
Is awesome.
It's just awesome. So this is what Matt, I was also talking because, of course, the genre, like you were saying, contrasting L. Ron Hubbard with some of, with, I don't know, Philip K. Dick or others, the genre of sci-fi can contain anything. It can contain escapism as well as some really, or who passed away. Harlan Ellison passed away recently. Incredible author. We should do a special show on that, which I have to prep so we can all maybe read something or something. Maybe we should agree on reading a book or something that we all read and then discuss. Here, for example, so I just took up The Brood, right? The Brood, which I bought when I was 12 years old for 50 cents or something. Hi, Luvo Anime. I throw it to you in a sec. But here's The Brood. And so this is movie related. Now, this was Lowbrow. Here comes Highbrow, which I bought in Edinburgh at a shop. And this book is called, and why is this? Please read the title, Shyla, and tell me why this is Highbrow.
All right. Well, I can't zoom in on that title.
Okay. I'm sorry.
What is the title?
The title is The Ninth Life of Louis Drax.
The Ninth Life of Louis Drax?
Yes. Can everybody see this? Daisy, can you see it?
Not very easily. Hang on.
It's about you.
Almost. I'll bring it here closer to you. Here.
Oh, that's not working. F4. I'm trying to get F4.
Oh, that's right. F4.
Yeah.
Time to fry me some burgers on the
It
laptop.
doesn't seem to be working. I'm just moving. Strange.
Yeah, but you can just look out of your eyes. Here, Matt, I look at this. The Ninth Life of Louis Drax. Now, why is this highbrow, folks?
I'm lost.
Because it contains my name in the title, okay?
Yeah, makes it highbrow, of course, yeah.
See, Luvo Enemy, you know what I'm talking about.
Does that mean all the...
But do you want to be highbrow? That's what we're talking about, isn't it?
I don't know what
highbrow just snobby?
Yeah, and I think I'm a snob. I think I have come to grips with that this entire inclusiveness is just a sham. I'm just a total snob. This book is about a boy who is in a coma and lives in his own world.
Oh dear. Doesn't sound very nice.
It is about you.
It kind of is. So here's a bunch of titles because Kang was throwing them out. Now, what do you guys think? Is this, judging from the cover, judge a book by its cover, is this highbrow or lowbrow?
Highbrow, for sure.
Oh yeah, well I think it is actually, because I think it's by, is it Cat Valente or
Yeah.
somebody quite highbrow, or
Space.
literary. I think.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly.
Maybe,
From your
maybe a
definition.
better-
But this is
Yeah,
also
this is my
genre.
definition.
It's also genre
Yeah.
at the same time. Yeah.
Space what?
Space opera.
Is it anything to do with space? I've not read the book, but is it
Well, it's
anything
got
to do
the
with
opera in
space?
it.
This is wonderful. I did an interview with the author. This is about a intergalactic Eurovision contest that is run by aliens, and they want to blow up the Earth unless a musical group from the Earth is going to perform well in the Eurovision contest. It's super wacky. It's like Douglas Adams for the 21st century.
How come
Seriously.
that's not been made into a film?
Well, it's been made into a kind of a comic. There's a children's comic that has that same theme. I think it's not a children's comic. It's an adult because it's on Adult Swim. But they took that space opera concept and put it in Morty and
Rick and Morty?
Rick and
what?
Morty.
Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
Rick and Morty
right.
did a play on space opera.
No, but this book is really very much like Douglas Adams. It just came out this year. It's already optioned for a movie. Not everything has to be made into a movie in order to qualify for a success. Here comes Leper. Leper, hello.
Hi,
Now,
Leper.
Hi, Leper.
now Luvo Anime, can
I
you...
think that they made into a game.
What?
That's what they are. And they're made into a game.
That's a success when they're made into a game?
Yes.
Yeah.
Computer game, I think.
That's why I'm a success. I've been made into an avatar. That's even higher success. Luvo Anime, how do you define highbrow versus lowbrow? How would you define it?
Gosh, to me, as you say, it sounds like what people consider highbrow is high thinking, but on a critical level. Like when critics make lots of assumptions or talk about a film on a level that is above everybody else, it sounds to me. That's what highbrow is, whereas lowbrow, I guess, is what everybody else and what is popular probably as well.
Right.
So what is popular isn't always considered highbrow, but it's, to me, that seems like it's better because it appeals to more people.
I slightly disagree. I would say that something that is popular doesn't have to be garbage, but see, that comes the snob
No,
comes
see,
through.
I'm saying it's not. Yeah, I don't think anything is pop. So I'm saying lowbrow, I don't think is garbage.
Right. I mean, my dad would probably say, well, McDonald's, by that definition, McDonald's makes the best burgers, which is by definition not true because they're so popular. This is an interesting subject with the popularity of things too. Oh, go ahead.
I think there's a lower level than lowbrow, though. So lowbrow's good level.
Ah.
Used to be the case not that long ago. Certainly in Britain, anyway. I'm sure it was the same in America. That anything that was popular was just not reviewed by the quality newspapers or anything. It just completely. Well, supposedly my former boss was the political editor of a magazine that supposedly changed all that, or the Modern Review. It was a magazine that started to seriously review popular books and films and music and everything. And it was sort of reviewing for middle class, highbrow audience.
Right.
And it didn't ever sell a lot, or it didn't last for that many issues, but it seems to have been quite influential because so they claim that all the newspapers copied it pretty soon afterwards and started to take seriously popular literature.
Yeah. I mean
and
that
whatever.
is
And so yeah, it's quite interesting.
that is an achievement. That is an achievement breaking
yeah.
through that system. As we said earlier, or Shia was saying, it's an artificial, to some extent, an artificial division that is created to, well, just artificially define something as better than the other. So this magazine, what was that called?
It was called the Modern Review.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's about as rare as hen's teeth now, I think. Yeah.
But you were now, wait a minute, but Daisy, what you just said, that also then expands your definition because you were saying this magazine reviewed stuff that was meant to be for the unwashed masses
Yeah,
and
well,
took that
I mean,
seriously?
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking at it a day or two ago, thinking about it. It's coming up to because I've got a copy, and it was I was reading an article about the Beatles, and it was sort of saying that the early Beatles was better than the later Beatles, which I thought, well, I'm not sure I'd agree with that personally, but yeah, it was really championing what I'd call very lowbrow. Stuff. So I thought that was quite interesting.
Wait a minute, the
Yeah.
early Beatles are lowbrow now? I don't know.
Well, very pop, weren't they? More so than the later Beatles.
Now I'm no no no
Later
now
Beatles.
I'm following you. I see. They
Yeah,
were very much in a very popular mold where they haven't yet developed their own very unique revolutionary
yeah,
then approach
yeah, yeah,
that influenced everything that came thereafter. They were just basically uh, copying what was happening at the time, just a little bit better.
yeah,
I see. So we're really
yeah,
expanding our definition. Leper,
yeah.
are you here?
Yeah.
Have you been made into a video game yet?
Mm.
We need to make a leper video game. Then leper is
Mhm.
really gonna be famous as a boar. I I want to throw it again, please, to Mad Eye. It's the first time you're here, and you come from the what you said about sci-fi is really it so resonates with me. But how do you define then, um, even something like a space opera, let's say, as a genre, or just something people, I don't know, spaceships, two alien species going to war with each other. Who knows if there was an intended subtext, right? We don't know that.
Yeah.
Maybe L. Ron Hubbard maybe he's a total genius. I actually never read anything. I really should. I really should.
What I will say is that Battlefield Earth was a really fun book. It's not a book that really makes you think a lot, and I'm not even sure that it, like, if you analyzed it, it might not even have a lot of self consistency in its world. But um, it's one of the, like, I don't know who's an author that people who don't read sci-fi would just like pick up at the bookstore and read because it's really fun and fast, like James Patterson or someone,
Right.
like
I
it's
was
kind of that kind of thing.
Hey, the thing now that I saw at the airport just now was also David Baldacci. This kind of a new guy, but James Patterson, we talked about him last week, and we talked about like that he must have people writing for him, or some of these people probably have
Yeah,
people who just he gives them an outline and they just execute the stuff because these guys
Yeah,
come out with
exactly.
like 3 books a year or something.
yeah. Well, yeah, it'd probably be possible to do 3, but not 30. I was,
On the other
yeah.
hand, didn't Isaac Asimov write something like 300 books? I mean,
Boy, I
Yeah,
gotta look
it's,
this up.
some
and
people
that guy
can
died.
write a
He
lot.
wasn't very
Yeah,
old when he died either. So
Yeah.
um, like, sometimes you get authors who are just really prolific. But
Yeah.
yeah. I
I've
mean,
heard it
so,
said that James Patterson has a team.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I heard that too.
yeah. I believe he has. Yeah,
Sort of like Thomas Kincaid, if you're talking about paintings.
Oh my God, there was a Thomas Kincaid store in Carmel by the sea where we lived adjacent there. Oh my God. I'm sorry, I'm also a art snob. I'm just terrible. If you want to
What
really cause me headaches or maybe make me I don't know, end
his
it all.
website admits that he has a team that paints in his style.
Oh my God, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
These
Okay.
well, I
books
think
are
there's
all
quite a lot
work
of
and no
artists
play.
who have apprentices or yeah people that do the actual painting, particularly sort of conceptual
Let's
Yeah,
ex
artists
let
and what have you. Yeah.
Oh, here's a new guy, Jerns. Let's expand. Hey, Jerns, you came upon the Drax Files Book Club. We're also streaming this. Louvo Anime, you just realized that in all the books that are here,
Yes,
it says
they
the
all
same
write about
thing.
you, Drax,
Yes,
saying that you're a dull boy if you had no work and no play.
yes. Let me ask everybody a question to make the round, because Matt, I kind of put that up there. We talked about a little bit yesterday. Now, when you said the Battlefield Earth, and I think they made this into a movie with John Travolta, I guess.
I
Uh,
actually didn't mind that movie.
yeah.
Really? I
Yeah, I
found
know a
it
lot of
just
people
hard to
hated it,
watch.
but
Like,
I know, but there's
I
something
thought it was.
about it that just
I was told this was the most
so bad
painful
it was
movie
good.
ever made. Ah, worse than anything that Ed Wood ever made. Okay, but here this is the book club, so we'll still talk books. So my question is, Matt, I said that Battlefield Earth is fun, and I was using the Brood here. David Cronenberg is really not a good example because David Cronenberg has obviously a lot to say in the subtext. It's all a very thought out critique of society, of human relationships, the human condition, and so on and so forth. Oh my God, I rendered this texture wrong. See, isn't this funny? Look at the brood. The back of the back of the book has actually the back of the Louis Drax book. Oh my God, this is the best. This is a mixture of high and low. No, my question is, when you have a book that is fun, that is some say escapist, and is not making you think. Here's my devil's advocate question. Isn't that a big problem when it just makes you sort of zone out? Isn't that worse than I don't know, taking recreational drugs, if that's bad? I know Shila's going like, "What are you talking about? What's bad about that?"
I don't know. Would you consider Harry Potter to be lowbrow?
That's a good question.
No, because it has the name Mad Eye in it.
No, but
Can you
something.
just take that from Harry Potter?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a value. I mean, I think there is a value in relaxed or leisurely reading.
Okay. But if you
Yeah,
only okay, but if you only do that, if it's only like sort of crime, let's take genre, crime and super formulaic. I mean, it's like the literary equivalent of watching only Law and Order all day long. Is that good? Is
Yeah,
that
so
good for
that
your
would,
brain?
that would get
Yeah,
very
I don't know that
tedious
it's.
to me.
Hold on, two different opinions. First, okay, Leper, you have to let's do Leper and then go the round, and then Jurin's the new guy. Also, I want him to chime in. Leper, what do you think?
That I been there. I watched Law and Order all
Leper
the
been there, done that, watched all 50,000 seasons twice in a row. All spin-offs too,
Yes.
or just original?
I'm not sure.
There's
Maybe this
SVU.
original.
Yeah.
No, some spin-offs. Some spin-offs.
Yeah.
Like I was seeing the well, I didn't know at the time, but I guess I tested out to see if it affects your brain somewhat, and it did. Oh, it really did a little bit, and the fact that it really makes you think a lot.
Well, if it makes you
What
think, I
happened?
mean, that's good, but by Mad Eye's definition, like, and I can give you a million examples too. I mean, I guess I always go back to Conan. Where's my Conan book? I mean, Conan is awesome. It's awesome adventure and there's worlds, but here we go. Louvre Anime has my Conan book. Wow. Perfect. Thank you. Throw it on the trash. Let's do some book burning. No, that's actually not it's actually not even funny. Um Jurens, you're new here. Are you new to Sansar? Or just new to us?
Depends on your definition of new. I've been around, but yeah, sorry, I didn't know that I was intruding on a book club.
Not at all. This is open for everyone, except that you only read crappy literature. Then you got to go home.
Yeah, I
We're
think
contribute.
We're
Well,
frickin'
I
snobs.
hardly read any books.
I'm heavily biased. I'm super heavily biased. So I'm just going to recognize that. I don't read fiction. I only read nonfiction.
Oh.
That's not true. Sometimes I will read a fiction book, but only if it has a specific allegory that's meant to sort of stir some sort of like moral or teaching.
Right.
So there's like a lot of business books that are written as fiction because it's the easiest way to convey a story. But yeah,
This is super interesting. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt. I'll let you go. Take it where you will. But this actually is something where I wanted to do an entire show about because this fascinates me. I start nonfiction and then I put it down and I go to fiction because I feel that the truth, the deeper truth about humanity is better told in fiction, actually. But anyways, I didn't want to interrupt. Go ahead and take it where you will. Elaborate.
Yeah, no, I can totally buy that. I can totally explain that. But then I also feel that, so I understand that and I get that point. I also feel that if you're going to try to get to these deeper truths about reality or humanity or whatever, why not just cut straight to the chase and let's just talk. Let's just read philosophy books.
Yeah, you're right.
I've done a lot of that too. But then at the same time, I also play video games, and there's no redeeming quality in it. I'll come home on the weekend and I'll play some video games, and it's what I'm doing now. I'm just sort of having fun. And is there a redeeming quality in like letting loose? And it's the equivalent of just having a drink every now and then.
Well, I would say
Is it bad?
hanging out with us, that there's a lot of redeeming quality because we're the intellectual elite of
That's
Sansar,
right.
and so that this is way
Oh
much.
my
This
God.
is like drinking an entire bottle, right, Shyla?
Oh
Am I
my
right?
God.
But
No, we're
I was
just
thinking,
people.
I was thinking about what you were saying, and in my head, I was imagining like from like the early 2000s, the right wing group saying, are your kids worshiping Satan by reading Harry Potter?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm of course kidding, and Shyla, thank you for. I mean, I think Durance knows that my tongue-in-cheek weird humor of German descent. Well, I told this story
I'm
before. I
of
mean,
German descent.
yeah, but it took me 20 years living in America to realize that you have to end if you do dry delivery, you have to end the sentence with "just kidding."
That's right. They don't know. They don't know.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there's a cultural difference. I'm not saying they're stupid or anything. Maybe I'm too dry, Look at the British people here, Daisy. That's even drier. I mean, compared to Daisy's humor. Yeah. No, Jurgens, actually, Jurgens, that's so you get all your, you get a really nice palette of nutrition though if you read, you cut straight to the chase with nonfiction, and then you complement the escapist part with playing video games, and so you got a nice variety. Yeah,
I
Yeah, I
suppose
like
so.
Germans. I read a lot of nonfiction too.
I see that, but see, this is like I had a phase. Um, like I have three books that my wife got me a couple of years ago for my birthday, or 3 years ago, and they sounded really good. There was one about the one book, and it is good. It's called Dog Whistle Politics, for example, and it's about tracing back the history of the right wingers, how they use dog whistle politics, how they sort of embed their message in their racist, misogynist messages into sort of this coded language and stuff like that. So that's super interesting. But then I feel like if I read it, it's not that it's too dry or anything. I just get, if I read that subject matter in a novel, like in a John Steinbeck novel or something, like I read The Pearl, which is awesome. It's a novella actually. The Pearl is more about capitalism because they're finding that pearl, and then they go to the town, they want to sell it, and then they turn on each other. So it's kind of an allegory about like, why don't they should have just kept that pearl. The jealousy comes with it, and then sort of greed and all that kind of stuff. Um, I don't know where I'm going with this. I just think like if it's embedded in in sort of this world builded a narrative, and sci-fi does the same thing, or a Star Trek episode. Yeah, crap.
I would say
Actually, Durance makes
sci-fi
me
is
feel bad because I really should read more philosophy. I really should go to the source and just read a whole bunch of really important books. God damn it. Yeah.
Well,
I would say
Let's do some book burning here. Let's burn this Conan
no,
book.
no, no, no.
Schwarzenegger, you ruined my life. Get out of here. Okay, sorry. Shyla first? Or who was first?
Well, I
Who's
think
on first?
Gator was first.
Gator? Go ahead.
Oh, I can't, what was I going to say? I don't know.
Oh, you guys are really piling up these books as if we're gonna burn them, dude. Look at
them
it.
all together. Look in front of them.
I do read some non-fiction. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I particularly like biographies, memoirs, actually, political and historical.
See, this is I
So
I can't
think,
understand
yeah,
that. I
they're very
don't.
popular. There are lots of people like biographies. They're one of the biggest selling parts of publishing biographies.
See,
Yeah, I
and
like biographies.
ugh, I hate autobiographies. I like biographies when people are dead and people write them and they research them. There's a great one about Winston Churchill where they actually trace back very dark history of his kind of racism actually before he came to prominence, obviously, in the Second World War.
Well, yeah, and
But
I've read the
autobiographies
biography.
are often just waxing like I'm the greatest. Actually, I should
No,
write
but we
more.
were talking about biographies, which
Sorry,
is
yes.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
painting with a broad brush as usual.
I just read Fire and Fury. It's kind of a, I don't know if you
Yeah.
call it a biography. I don't know
Yep.
what you would call that. Is it a biography? I don't know, but it's
No.
No,
That would
it's a
be.
poly.
I would say actually my a talk show host. I listened to the Majority Report, which I recommend everyone. It's awesome. And Michael Brooks said this is actually a guilty pleasure. He read that like in I don't know 3 hours, and he said it's absolutely fascinating, and it's not it's I wouldn't call it investigation
It's a
because
first-person story.
it is, and it's yeah, but the guy snuck in there. What's his name? And there was a German guy too who was undercover. Well, he wasn't really undercover either because he told the Trump people that he was a journalist, right? So he
yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
even
yeah.
going in there under sort of undercover. But I would really read that. I would think I saw a lot of interviews with the guy, and I think it's actually super fascinating. Also, the backstory that they let him in there, that they didn't even realize that he was gonna reveal all this stuff. Does everybody know what
Yeah.
we're talking about, Fire and Fury?
Yeah, I've read that one.
I know
These
of it.
things.
Read? What's reading?
Marcus, you gotta go. This is the Drax Files Book Club. It's not the What is
Books?
Reading Club.
Oh, gosh. Why would you be bored with reading when you have all these multimedia things?
See, no, there's a point. Um, we're gonna get there, and actually, we're gonna do a special show, Marcus, where we're gonna do exactly that. Why would you read a book? That's gonna be in a couple of weeks. But let's stick with this subject. Shyla, you wanted to say something?
Well, I was thinking about the biographies, the nonfiction,
Yeah.
and versus the fiction, and I think for me the difference is, and I think this is just different persona types, is I think it's easier if you read about an individual person to say that is that particular person and not necessarily branch it out as far. But you can still branch it out. You can still see qualities or maybe apply it to something that's going on today. But then in a story about group events, I think you can apply that further out. But for me with fiction, it is fiction to me. Like at the end, even though they may be trying to give me a lesson or there's a moral to the story, or as I like to write without a moral. I write as if life happens, and sometimes you don't know why things in life happen. But to me, it's still fiction. I can take from it what I want, whereas the real truth, and I think non-fictional writing recently has really uncovered some things that we should really be concerned about.
Oh,
And
no,
it's
you're
been
making
covered in
absolutely.
fiction, but I think fiction is easy to cast aside and say that will never happen. And yet what's happening in fiction today is also in parallel happening in the real life.
That is a
You get what
super.
I'm saying?
I totally understand what you're saying, and I certainly
Yes.
didn't want to dismiss the importance of nonfiction and investigative analysis of what's currently going on and phenomena, and also history. I mean, I read this tome about it's called The Sleepwalkers, about how Europe got into World War One. That's absolutely crazy fascinating. That stuff is super important, and that would probably be not as effective in a fictional context. I totally hear you loud and clear. I personally like to, with current events, I like to read long form articles. I have a subscription to a sort of an investigative magazine, and so they don't jump on the news, but they do really long form investigations. And yeah, they're long, but they're not as long as a as an outright book, I guess, is what I find. I guess I find that more efficient. But
At the end of the
so
day, fiction is just fiction. It's not, it's not as it's not as fixed and deterministic, if you like, as
I don't
obviously
know. Okay, I'll
as
give you an
non-fiction.
example.
Although it does seem to have greater, it lasts for longer. I mean, it can last for sort of a couple of thousand years practically, or a very long while.
I don't know,
So
but look,
in that
Daisy,
sense, it
Daisy,
does have
Daisy,
a greater
Daisy,
reach
Daisy,
than
you
non-fiction, I
recommended to
think.
me Hamlet, which I never read, and then I read Hamlet. Is Hamlet is timeless. Hamlet is
Yeah, well,
timeless about human nature and
exactly. Yeah,
about how people relate to each other. And this book,
yeah.
The Ninth Life of Louis Drax, where is it? Which is the best book ever written because it has my name in the title. Where the hell is it? Um,
But
oh, thank you very much.
it's
Lubo
not
anyway
quite
is
as
on
on
the
the
ball.
nose. It's not even so. It's not quite as on the nose as
So
reading, say, a book of the psychology textbook or something,
yeah,
which
and we're
will
not
say
debating.
things
We're not the
definitively and scientific, and try to say something scientific. There's no sort of arguing with what they're saying in the book, whereas fiction is generally open to interpretation. I mean, that's one of the things about fiction.
yeah, but that's why it's so
They say
powerful
it's
about truth.
as much about the person that reads it as about the what's actually written on the page.
Except the trouble with triples.
But that's why I find it. That's why I find High Solus, and we're going
It's
to
all
throw
about
it to you
keeping
in a
pets,
second.
isn't it?
No, the trouble with triples is about not procreating. It's a right-wing conservative plot.
Oh, is it?
Somehow snuck in there.
You should get the writer of it in here and see how that
I'm sorry.
conversation goes.
I forgot, Drax. You were in America for 20 years. Just kidding.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm going to get Orson Scott Card in here and ask him. This is actually going to be another show. If you have like Ender's Game is a wonderful book about it's totally anti-militarist message, and it's a wonderful, awesome book. And Orson Scott Card is a total asshole. I'm sorry to spell it out like that. He's a homophobe, misogynist, super idiot, and it baffles me that yeah, it baffles me that he can write Ender's Game, which is so profound about, again, the human condition, about how children are being manipulated for the war machine and all these themes. And actually, Ender's Game has a storyline about Ender's brother and sister, and Ender's brother, and get this, guys, Ender's brother invents a persona on the internet. This book was written in the early 70s. He invents a persona that writes inflammatory articles, and his sister is inventing another persona who writes against those inflammatory articles. And together, because just by riling up these emotions, they get the entire planet into war by just writing against each other with different opinions. So it's an awesome storyline.
Interesting thought, yeah.
But for example, look, Daisy, here, this book here, The Ninth Life of Louis Drax, is about a boy who is in a coma, and it's about how the parents relate to that boy. And so, I don't know. I mean, we're not disagreeing. I totally don't disagree with you. You made actually a good point. It is open to
Yeah, no,
interpretation.
I mean, it is. It's very much. Well, my reaction to that book, without even reading it, is, oh no, that sounds awful, because of my own, history, what have you, and so just even before I've opened the book, my reaction to it is different.
Yeah, but
my own
yeah,
interpretation of it.
yeah.
And I don't doubt that if it is about that,
No,
it would almost certainly be different to your reaction.
Okay, but see, but
or
like,
Charlotte's, or
so
anyone else's.
okay, but
So in that sense, its fiction is more open to interpretation. I mean, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because life and everything in the universe and everything is not actually quite as set in stone as maybe even scientists, I think, sort of accept that they can't get everything right. Like they're fallible, and they get things wrong and all the rest of it.
well, that would
So
be my
that's
point.
nothing.
My point is that you cannot learn about the human condition by studying math. I mean, this is a whole other subject. I think you're caught into sort of a binary thinking. I know that's not what you're saying, but since I know you
I don't know.
personally, and I know,
I disagree with that though.
oh,
Here we go. Well, so there's a William
Here
Blake
we go.
quote. Here we go. So there's a William Blake quote, right? It's something like to see the world in a grain of sand. I forget the rest of it. But the concept is, right, if you can fully understand a grain of sand and really understand everything about it, then necessarily you have to understand the rest of the universe, right? Because you can't fully understand or appreciate one thing unless you take into account everything that can, does, might have in the past interacted with it. So I get your point. Like, well, how am I going to learn? How am I going to learn about, human emotion through mathematics? How are you going to learn about mathematics without physics? And how are you going to learn about physics without building rocket ships? How are you going to build a rocket ship unless you get a team of people and you start adding emotion into it? So I know that's kind of like an abstract
that makes a lot of sense.
Saying, but
no, that makes a lot of sense. And I admit, I totally hear what you're saying, but then I would say it's a push-pull type of situation. One of the best examples for that is how scientists are influenced, for example, by science fiction. So a lot of the writers who come up with concepts don't come from a scientific background. They just envision certain things and they put that into context. And there's many examples of scientists who pursue things because as adolescents they have read a story that captured their imagination. I mean, I'm saying slightly a different. I'm saying I'm making a different point.
I bet.
Yeah, but I don't disagree with you, but I do feel this is opening another can of worms. As a former sociology student, I, for example, find it really problematic that, for example, in the public discussion, what sociologists should be doing is actually now being done, or has been for a while, by economists. Now, I have nothing against economists. They know a whole lot. But a sociologist, I would stipulate, knows actually much more about human nature because of the nature of how this discipline is being taught and executed. And when we look at spreadsheets and at numbers, that's not enough. I guess that's sort of my point.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nuance between the numbers, and that's more. I'm doing a meta critique about the whole system, like how we sort of look at it in a binary. Or that was actually my larger point, I guess.
A lot of things can be reduced to psychology and sociology and things. Actually.
Damn, this has turned into the Draxter
book club or the psychology class.
Exactly, Marcus. You do. No, this is the Marcus throws books at Draxter's head until he gets such a headache that he's.
I'm running out of books.
I've
got one of my favourite books.
Gotta throw some beer bottles. There's beer bottles in the bag.
I do one that she's right behind you.
Oh shit.
Talking of
Sorry, Daisy. Yeah, go ahead. Daisy?
One of my favourite non-fiction books, in fact, possibly my favourite, is a book called Political Psychology. It's a textbook. It's got all sorts of it's got essays in it about sort of voting behaviour and all sorts of really.
That's super interesting.
Tests on sort of obedience and groupthink and all kinds of sort of behaviours.
Yeah, I mean, this is totally the stuff that I would read, and
politics, and it's quite creepy. Some of it is quite creepy.
Guys, because Daisy's making this good point, we have a Goodreads on Goodreads.com. You can. We have actually a club, and you can actually link books. And Daisy, please, after the show, put that in the show notes. The books that you mentioned. That's a book that I would totally read. And
if you read that, you'll never look at your family doctor the same way ever again.
Oh dear.
Look at your family what?
At your family doctor?
Your family doctor, yeah.
Oh.
It's about doubling and things, and yeah.
Wait, is that a British thing? Because this is my random joke. I always say
no, it's not. It's not.
Family
I don't think so.
Exactly. Druids is from the US. You have to explain to him what healthcare is. Sorry.
Yeah, that's right. I was trying to think of a suitable word for over here. I'd say GP, general practitioner. But that's,
right. It's more like a general practitioner. Yeah.
Yeah.
Family doctor in the UK. You know what that is? That's a guy who comes to your home. and they murder you and then they bury you in the front yard. There was a story that a doctor did that, 500 patients.
Yeah, that's right.
Is
And
there
then over
are
here,
family
yeah.
doctors political in the UK? I'm just trying to understand.
No, it's just about
Family doctor means that you're pretty much grown up as a family with the same doctor for all your family. So like
Well,
when I was
but
a
Jurens
child,
is asking
we
if you
had a
could
doctor who was
if you could summarize real quick the thesis of this book, because what does it mean when you read a book about political psychology, and what does that have to do with the family doctor?
Yeah.
No, well, there's not one thesis of the book. It's as I say, it's a load of different essays on different aspects of politics. Some touch on sort of war and violence and terrorism, and other things just sort of touch on the way politicians tend to sort of
I'm even more confused now.
There's all sorts of different.
I feel bad about
essays in there.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt, but I feel bad about the boar because the boar doesn't have a family doctor because he's a boar. Animals don't have, and like,
They have vets.
They have
yeah.
vets, and sometimes
Yeah, they have
it gets
family
very
vets.
personal with vets.
Yeah.
family.
The gecko knows.
The doctor
Yeah, you're not lying.
is all to do with a psychological process called doubling, and
Oh.
how that if you have to do something unpleasant, such as be a concentration camp guard or something, you're psychologically you can sort of distance yourself.
Ah, see?
And,
See.
yeah,
Oh.
and apparently doctors do this routinely because obviously they're sticking a needle in someone's arm or operating on them. It's not a normal behaviour, and so they tend to
Well,
Poke. Sorry.
yeah, but basically.
Oh, this is now I understand.
If you
Yeah.
if you ever go to your doctor and they're cracking sort of really bad and
Jokes?
slightly inappropriate jokes,
Yeah,
they've
yeah.
probably sort of gone into this doubled state or something, and they're not quite themselves. They're slightly
well, I've always said
So get out of there as fast as possible.
You mean get out of there?
They're about to stick a needle in you or do something unpleasant.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see. Because they're trying to. Because that's what
They're
they
trying
all
to
do.
distance themselves
Ah.
psychologically because ordinarily it's not a normal behaviour.
So they might say, "I could murder you, but I'm just going to put this needle in you instead."
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I've
that's
always
problematic.
said. So I have a neurosurgeon. I have brain tumors. So I've had brain surgery a few times, and I've always said about my neurosurgeon, I am so glad that he's not I'm so glad that he's a neurosurgeon and nothing else. Because if he was anything else, if he was a politician,
He would be a
or in
psychopath.
finance, yeah, it's just he's so calculated and cold, and
Yeah.
I love it. It's great. It's exactly
Yeah.
what I need for a brain
For his
surgeon.
profession,
but-
yeah.
Well, you
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know. You don't. He might be completely different. You see at home. He might slip into this psychological state when he's at work or something because he has to deal with this difficult. You know,
Yeah.
you got to do this upsetting and difficult
Are we back into
job.
psych class?
Yeah, well, that's basically what there's essays on this sort of thing in the book.
I feel bad. I feel like right when I showed up, I derailed the entire conversation away from the original book.
No.
Drax does that all the time.
No, Jurens, listen, Jurens, I'm super happy that you showed up. This is exactly what I wanted to start, this type of open discussion that is evolving around books, but then goes elsewhere. The one thing that maybe down the line we're gonna maybe pick a book that we all read, something light and nice that we can discuss. But Jurens, I'm super grateful that you showed up and that you're sharing this with us. This is awesome. This is exactly what we wanted to do here. And
cool.
what you're saying, I mean, I think that this totally resonates with me. This is what I thought about, especially surgeons, that I would not want to have a cup of tea with them, but I'm so glad that they're doing what they're doing. And I mean,
Yeah.
cup of tea not in a condescending way, but exactly like you phrased it, like they could be mass murderers maybe in a different universe or something.
You don't know I'm having surgery coming up, right?
Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh, Shyla.
Disregard the subject, Shyla.
Sorry.
All right. A
Sorry,
gecko's
I
brain is
mentioned it.
small.
No, doctors in the Chicago area, they have not been known for hundreds of years to be mass murderers. They're all in England, the mass murderer doctors.
Yeah, unfortunately.
That's a
yeah.
statistics.
That in Southern California, so don't worry about it.
Okay,
Really?
good. I'm
There
good.
was one
I'm
too?
good, and Solus
No,
is good.
I'm just teasing.
And, no, you know what we've got in Minnesota, which is just northwest or northeast of me, is a woman who was serving up her lover's remains at a barbecue.
Oh,
Oh, God.
shit.
Stop it.
Jules, now that's derailing the book club. That's derailing the subject matter.
I am
Oh,
not going
shit.
to any more barbecues.
I'm not going to go to any more book clubs. I'm not going to read anymore.
This is
That's it.
disturbing.
Marcus, can
totally
you tell me something
disturbing.
about video games, please? I'm done with the fucking reading.
Absolutely. Anything but the book club.
This is a true story. They didn't catch her
That's
till
sick.
she did it to her actual husband. Her husband
wow.
knew she did it to the 8 before.
Oh.
And then
Wait,
she
the
did it to
husband
her
was
husband,
in it?
and He was in on it for the 8 prior.
He was in on it, and he was in it, literally in it.
Yeah,
Oh.
look it up. You can Google it. This is true stuff.
Yummy.
That's
My
disturbing,
gosh.
though.
It's very disturbing because once you've had that barbecue, you can't take it back.
Very true.
Right, so there's an interesting
the moral of that
concept
story is
that
bring your own meat to your barbecue.
well, so there's this episode of there's this show on Netflix called The Rain, and I think it's German actually. I don't know. It's an awful series. I thought it was very poorly written, but there was one episode that I found so fascinating. And so basically, it's kind of like a post-apocalyptic series where the rain kills you instantly and turns you into a zombie, kind of like a zombie movie, right?
Wow.
But
Very original.
anyways,
from
these
Germans.
kids. Yeah. Well, so these kids are like backpacking, and they come across this like big, beautiful mansion, right in the middle of nowhere. And these people come out, and you have to mind you, this is like post-apocalyptic, and everyone's fighting for resources. So you don't trust anyone. You're afraid you're going to get shot and everything. But these people come out, and they're all wearing white, and they're very nice, and they're like, here, come in, be a part of us, and we'll give you a shower, and we'll be very nice to you. And all they do all day is meditate, and they're just like very nice people. And they're like, what is going on here? This is so weird. It's so freaky. I don't understand. Like, they're used to like people trying to kill them all the time, and they want to leave. It's
like Harvest in the context of Sansa.
Yeah. So half of them, so half of them are like really wigged out and like, we gotta go. This isn't, there's something fishy going on. The other half are like, no, this is good. Why don't we just live here, live a nice life? And so, the group that tries to leave, they, the people in white are like, well, you have to stay for our monthly dinner, and then after the monthly dinner, you can go. So they go. It's like a really big feast, like all this food, lots of meat, which there's not a lot of meat in post-apocalyptic world because he's gonna, do the cattle and everything. But at the end, they start drawing sticks. And, one of the girls draws the short end of the short stick. And they're like, well, what does that mean? And they said, well, what that means is that now they're going to take you into the back, and they're going to kill you, and you're going to be the meat for next month's meal. Wow. And so this is how this is how.
That's disturbing.
And it's disturbing. And they're like, and the way that we've created this wonderful life is by knowing that next month could be the last month, and that we're creating an intentional community here. And being focused on our own mortality creates our own happiness. And I found that very interesting. Is it? Yeah, I've never heard of it, but it's a very interesting concept, I thought.
Oh, Harvest is where you are now.
Yes. Would you like to... And Shyla's eyes went to the left.
Would you like to pull a straw?
Oh my God. I'm going to clip that on Twitch. Shyla's eyes went to the left just as she said it. So we got these straws in the back there. Marcus, would you be so kind as to get us a couple of straws?
Oh
Okay,
dear.
I wanted to a quick last rounds. We're out of time. We can of course stick around and talk. Next week is called adaptations. I think I'm gonna rename that. I'm going to next week. Let's make this about books that have been made into movies. Also, movies that have a novelization, I guess is the word, version. Those are the ones where I read as a teenager, like E.T. and I bought all like the novel versions of the movies like
Read?
Star Wars and stuff.
Or Aliens or Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park? What?
Oh, they've
The
been
book was
made
first
the
for that,
books and
wasn't
the
it?
movies.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I couldn't hear. What? Yeah, let me clarify. So next week we're going to talk about books that were made into movies, but also books that we read that came out of movies. Like this, The Brood here for David Cronenberg, which was a movie first, and then they, just probably well, not probably, pretty clearly to monetize the success of the film, they just pushed out a book too. I actually have the Nightmare on Elm Street book. I have the weirdest book. I actually have Dawn of the Dead as a novel. Can you believe it? Okay.
Yes, I can.
I put
Yeah.
I put everybody asleep.
Yeah.
Solus.
And
No, I
back
think
to
we
next
were
week.
just not shocked.
Yeah. Well, I don't have. Do I need to apologize for having that? I thought that was awesome. I love these. That's when I saw a movie, like I was into horror, and if I saw a movie that I loved, I looked if there was a book, and then I got the book. So,
Yeah.
any last
Yeah.
words from anybody? Mad Eye, Daisy, Love Anime, Solus. We didn't hear from you because you abandoned us to.
Sorry.
So much for your
It's
love
important.
of books. Very disappointing.
I'll talk next week.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, Solus,
Be
you're
nice
a
to
disappointment
me.
again.
Solus,
I
there
know,
may not be a
always, my
next week.
life.
There may not be a next week. Let me give you a short little
Why?
stick.
I had a small point.
Why, Drax? Did you pull the small stick?
No, you did. Look at this banana here. This is a very small banana. It's the smallest
away,
in
Drax.
Harvard.
Go away, Drax.
I think the final words are read what you love and love what you read.
Yes.
That's probably good.
Yay,
Yeah.
And I would say that lowbrow books have done a lot for humankind and society. I think ideas about heroism and all that sort of thing that happens in
That's true too.
lowbrow books does an awful lot for teaching people to be good to each other. And
I never learned to get emotions from books.
Really?
Just words on paper.
Okay, we're going to talk about that next week too, Marcus. That's actually that's something I do
I don't
also
get
want to talk
emotion
about.
from words. Yeah,
Only
that's why I
visuals.
don't do
You're a
reading.
visual person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, I mean this is totally legit. Maybe we can influence you here at Harvest as the cult that we are, to maybe.
Stop it. Oh my gosh.
I need
We
my
should all wear
soundboard.
white robes.
Wait.
Should I make white robes for us all to wear?
Hold on, but Lou.
Drax has to
Oh
have
my
something
God, that'd
different.
be awesome.
Wait. Stop. Because Louvo Anime made a great point, which I want to. This is the perfect closing point because she said lowbrow books, even when you talk about something like heroism. And I was going to end then because it's a perfect ending. How we all began is with the Conan books. If I hadn't read Conan, with the Schwarzenegger stills from the movie, if I hadn't read Conan, right, I wouldn't be the hero and the ladies' man that I am today. I mean, this is pretty clear.
Right.
Am I
Drax.
right?
That
Yeah.
bit of ego, maybe
Right.
I
He is
start
right.
reading.
That is it.
Well,
Shiloh and I know.
Maybe I need
Shiloh
to
and I
read.
know. Right,
Exactly,
Shiloh?
Marcus, listen to me.
Drax.
Yeah, if you want, hey, dude, if you want to start your own cult, you got get on with the reading. Absolutely, read
it.
some L. Ron Hubbard. Actually, man, I'm totally gonna
I
read.
come in with my ego going.
Oh man, I'm gonna read some. We're gonna put that on the book club list. Okay, I'm gonna cut the stream. A bunch of people watching Lazy Snow. Thank you, Lazy Snow. It's actually Lazy Snow. So I'm cut the stream here. Thanks, guys, on YouTube and Twitch, and goodbye. See you guys next time. If you didn't get